Widgets or organisms are the last piece that will help us define the entire design system. So let's look at what they are. As we saw earlier, the elements are the atoms and molecules that help us define the most basic elements. So widgets or organisms are complex components that provide a complete functionality or a feature. What that means is, if you look at the image here, we have already built the search bar in the previous lesson where we talked about molecules, and the input box with the search icon is the complete search bar. Now, if you look at the image, we need to build a sort of a header. If you go back and we add this particular icon to it, which is an atom that we have created, this entire thing now becomes an organism, and it serves the purpose of being the header for our app. Next can be this particular widget, the category icon widget. It has the title. We'll reuse the icons and we'll add some text to it. We also have this particular section, which is a sort of a best-selling products widget. So let's try to break this down into how it would combine whatever we have built so far, like the atoms and molecules, to provide a complete organism. And we can call it a product widget. This entire thing is going to be our organism. It can be encompassed inside a card, and a card can be a general container. What that will basically do is provide the padding and the margins required. Now, if you look at the entire design, we have consistent spacing. This can be at page level, and in some of the cases where the widget needs to expand beyond that, it can also be a part of the element. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our section title. This is a molecule that defined in the application. It's the title and the subtitle component, and clicking this will probably take us to a listings page, something like this. Next is going to be our image component. Like I said, that it's a good idea to encompass the native elements over a wrapper so that we can customize them. Let's say that we have these images and they are transparent and we want to do something like a light background and a dark background alternately, or maybe the round edges, we did not have them in the beginning. We want them at a later stage. Having a custom component over a simple native image type is going to help us control all of that. Next, we're going to have some detail sections. So we're going to reuse the title and the subtitle and the price for that. Another organism that we can build is this one, the category widget. It basically is a horizontal scroll, and we are going to use a flat list for this. So we'll also get introduced to flat lists, which are quite a versatile way of building lists in React Native. They're very, very performant when done right. And other than that, this is quite a simple widget. So let's go ahead and dive into the code. Like I said, I have already built the section title. If you look at the home component file, we already have a section title that basically is a customized text that has the title style applied to it. That's again coming from our typography. And if there's subtitle passed to it, then we render the subtitle. So this way, when we don't require the subtitle for this particular widget, we can choose to ignore that. And talking about that, the section title is a pretty simple style. What we're doing is we are doing select direction row and then space between so that we can create this kind of layout. Pretty much how we would do in the web application. So apart from that, we also have these icons, and I have reused the button category that we created in the previous lesson to build our camera icon that needs to go in the header. And this is the price component. And we are going to reuse our C text, the customized text, and style it to what we need for price. So we mostly have all the elements that are required. Apart from that, I've also created the image wrapper that we talked about. So it's basically a wrapper over a simple image so that it works the same way across the application, and some basic style added to it. So let's go ahead and start building our widget. We'll start with the product widget and then move on to building the category one. One thing that we need to change is currently, if we see, the entire homepage is pretty static. If I add even more content to it, the page is not going to scroll for us. And that's the default behavior in any app. So it pushed the content down, but we are still not able to scroll. So for that, we need to encompass this whole page in a scroll view. So let's do that. One thing to remember here is that we will be using a flat list to build a category component. And another question that can arise is that, can we not use a flat list to render this view that will help us optimize the entire page? So that is not a good idea. A scroll view is actually a great use case for something like an entire screen, and flat list inside a flat list is a very bad idea. It tends to throw a lot of performance issues, and that should absolutely be avoided in all cases. If there does come a situation where we need to implement a flat list inside a flat list, my recommendation would be go back to the design team and find a different solution, because that is not going to work well, at least on a lot of Android devices. Okay. So we changed that to scroll view. Let's check the impact of that. And it works fine, right? I'll remove these for now, but we do have our scrollable view. Let's start building the widget. And we'll start with building this particular product widget. We can see that it's going to be reused at a lot of places. So that would be a good idea to create this particular molecule. So let's get started. What we'll do is we'll go to our widgets and let's create a new widget. And call it product display. So let's create this index file. It's common for every application. And then let's also create the component file. So the first thing we'll do is import star as React from React. And we can do const product display, which should be of type React dot, and we'll declare some props for it. And we're going to do support default product display. So let's declare some props. Interface props, and just decide. So what we'll need for the widget is we'll need the image path, title, subtitle, and the price. So let's declare image path, image URL going to be string. We'll need that. We'll need the, let's just call it title, subtitle, and price. We'll do props. We'll use the custom image atom that we created. URI equals, let's just put that path for now that I've copied over. We'll pass it from the parent component that calls this, and we'll say return and then we can have, if we look at this, we'll have the sort of a subtitle, title, and price atoms. So what we can do is we can just go to the home component and copy those over. Let's copy the title, subtitle, or probably the subtitle and body. And let's also copy the price. Okay, so the error is basically all the functional components or other class components, they need to return a single root level element. So that's what we need to do. We'll just wrap it over into a view. And this is basically a field import. So we'll do that. And let's also import global and also view. So I think that should mostly be it. So let's save that and let's try and use that on a home component. And let's just use it on the home page. So we'll say product display. And let's mark the props as optional for now. Let's just test it out. We can pass that once the entire thing is set up and save the home page, and we'll wait for the home page to refresh. So, okay, so we see the title, the subtitle, and the price. We don't see the image because we have not passed a height and a width to it. So let's do that. You can say width and 50% and height. I'll put the height as 288. That's what this particular image has. Ideally, we'll get this again. So this needs to be fixed. So as soon as we do that, we have the product widget, this entire thing. So if you look at the code, it's quite simple, right? All we did was we accumulated the different atoms and molecules to create this particular new organism. Next, let's use this organism to build our entire product widget. Again, that's going to be a very simple process. So let's go and create a new folder and let's call it product widget. And let's just copy over the index file and build. Let's also copy over the component. We'll refactor it. So this is going to be the product widget. So let's also export that. And what we're going to need is the product display component. So let's do that. We'll probably need 2 of those. And what we need at the top is the section title. If you'll remember that we had created this one. Let's add that section title and we'll pass title to it as best-selling and subtitle as see all. Subtitle equals see all. We can also pass an on click to it so that when we click it, we go to a particular page. So let's just say on click and we're going to declare that here. We're going to import the router. It's a simple push. We can also do navigation.push, but it's always good to use the router so that we have those defaults in place. And the defaults can be related to showing the header or not showing the status bar or having a background color and a lot of other configurations that we require depending on the app we're building. We'll do navigators, router, and we'll do router dot push and pass the component ID to it. So we'll see screens dot. So listings is the dummy 3 screen, if you'll recall from the previous modules. I've just renamed it to listings. Sounds better, doesn't it? So we can pass that, and as soon as we click the title, we'll land on the listings page. So we have the title, we have the 2 products, and that's mostly it. What we're also going to do is we're going to wrap this whole thing in a card molecule. Let's create that. It's a good idea to have that so that we are always in control of the padding and spacing that's required at a page level. So let's go to elements and let's create a new card type, new file, or we can call it layout so that we can do multiple of these if required. Just copy over any one of these, it will do faster. We'll call it card. I'm not sure if it will require any props apart from children. So that's going to be our React element. So to a view. We'll just do, and we'll pass the children to it. Let's see if we really require any padding or margin. Doesn't look like it. So let's just leave it at that for now. And now we'll use this in the product widget that we're trying to create. So instead of view, we will do, okay, I think we need to export that. Export card, right? And it's, okay, it's saying that we have an array of elements. So let's do that. Instead of having one root element, there's the point adding an additional node over here. That would be a wasted layer. So let's do this, and that should fix it. Okay. So we have our card, the title, and the product displays. Let's try and render this on the home page now. There's still one thing missing. These products will come vertically. We need to align them horizontally. And we'll do that. So we'll say product widget. And okay, somehow it did not import that. Now it should work. So let's save that. And as soon as the view refreshes, we'll have the product widget. So that is nice. The next thing we need to do is align this in a row. For this, we will just need a view. And what we're going to do is we're going to use one of the global styles to make that happen. So we'll say style equals global dot. This seems to be from a layout. We don't have anything right now in layout that can support this kind of a horizontal placement. So we had a custom implementation for session titles. So it's totally a choice if we want to mark them individually or we want to use a common one. Let's use a common implementation here and let's call it row. So what we're going to do is we're going to do flex direction row. It's very similar to how we do in the web. So what we'll do is it'll align the elements in the row. And let's also justify content. And then looking from this, seems like the card is taking care of the alignment of the entire widget. So we can do space between. So we'll do space between. And let's use that dot row, save it. And once we have it, we see the 2 products. Now, images are not looking great. That is because we have not asked the individual product widget to occupy a certain space. There's two ways of doing it. One is if we feel that we're going to use this product widget in different widths across the application, we can make that as a parameter. Or if we feel that this is always going to take a certain space on the view whenever it appears, we can directly put it in the widget. So we'll just do style, and ideally they should come from the typography. So we'll just do typography dot elements dot, we need to add that. So let's go ahead and add that. Product display. We'll say width equals, let's do 50%, and let's use that. Once we save and reload, we have our product widget. So now as we see that it's quite simple. Now the spacing is a little off. So that's what we need to fix. Let's also rename this to, instead of see all, that doesn't look great. Let's do a BO play speaker. So BO play speaker, and let's fix the spacing. Whenever the title appears, it's supposed to have a certain space below it. So let's do that. We have used the section title, and we'll just go and fix the spacing for it. We'll say that whenever there's a section title displayed, we need some spacing at the bottom for it. So it again needs to come from typography. Typography dot, and this is an element. So let's declare a new one over here. So we'll say section title, and we'll say margin bottom 10. So let's use that. And once we save and refresh the app, we should have the spacing. 10 is a little less, but I think that works for now. Okay, there's also need to be space between these two product images that we have. So probably that 50% was a little too much. Let's reduce that. So let's go to the typography, and where we said 50%, let's make it a little less. Let's do a 48%. And once we save, we should have that space that is required. Yeah, looks more like it, right? And that's all we needed to do, right? So let's look at the product widget and see how we built it. We had a card type of an atom that allows to encompass a lot of different other atoms and molecules to form an organism. So we have that. Inside that, we took the section title molecule, we put it there. Now we are not passing any styles or anything to it. And whatever styles that we are using inside section title, it's also coming from our design system. That is the global layouts and global typography. Next, we build the product display widget. And again, it has no styles in itself. We are going to move this out into typography. Ideally, the image height and width would be set. And what other thing we can do is we have displayed these titles and subtitles and the price over here. It will totally depend upon the use case, but what we can also do is build this whole thing as a different molecule. So basically what we can have here is a sort of a price display component. So that's quite simple, right? So I hope that's all starting to make sense now, how through this entire module we have tried to define a typography. Then we took that typography and we created the global styles for it. And then how these typography flow from global styles into the different atoms, molecules, and help us build organisms. Next, let's look at building a carousel. We'll use that for building the category widget that we have at the top. And we'll build a generic carousel so that it can take up any children and render them. Let's say this is a simple product display module that's probably showing two products, but let's say that we wanted to build a carousel for it and just pass the product display component that we built into the carousel as children and render it. We'll use a flat list to build that. So flat lists are a pretty versatile solution in the React Native world for building virtualized lists. They are pretty performant and they come with a lot of options like horizontal mode and the initial number of items to render and a lot of other things that we'll look at in detail in one of the upcoming modules about performance that's called virtualization and how to optimize it. So for most of the use cases, I do not recommend tinkering with any of these options. They are pretty great as they are with their default values. So if required, and if we see performance hit, we can come back to modifying these and we'll look at that in detail. So let's start. What I'll do is I'll copy over the card component and reuse it to make our carousel. So let's just do that. This is under the layouts. And let's just say we'll call it carousel and we'll export it. And let's go to home component and also start displaying it. Carousel, it probably requires some props, children. So we'll pass to it. We're going to use a flat list for this. And what flat list basically requires two things. One is data, the array to iterate over. And the second is what to render. Let's first pass data to it. For now, what we'll do is we'll create the props and then pass the data to it. We need data and that will be our props.data. And the second thing that we need is render item. It's enough to actually have these two. What render item is basically, it just iterates over the array that we pass as data and we can tell it what we want to render. So let's say we have an image URL in data or a title in data, we can return ctext and then we can pass item.title. Let's say that we are getting an array of this, we can pass it and it'll iterate over this and create that flat list for us. A good use case would be to create a carousel that just also takes this render item. What item do we want to render inside this? And then it will render it. So we'll say data and then we'll say item. And it will be a React element. And both are mandatory. Props.item. So we'll just say that we need to render the item. And the error is for, okay, I've declared different props. So once we do that, we save it and then we go to the home component and we have carousel. It requires data and item. Let's pass that. Let's declare some data right here. Let's do carousel items equals, it will be an array. and we can just do URL. So we'll just try to display a couple of images. So let's do that. And it's going to be a carousel item, and we need to declare it in state. So let's declare it any for now. Okay, I have shortlisted a couple of images. So I'll just add them here. Okay, so that is good. We'll just go here and we'll say we want carousel item from states. And that's the data that we want to render. So we'll just say data equals carousel items. And next is what is it that we want to render. For that, let's do another function. Let's say render carousel item, and we'll get item comma index. It just loops over it, so that's what we're going to get. And we'll say return C image, and we'll pass the URI as item.url. That's what we declared here. So we'll do that. And we'll also need some style. Images don't render without a fixed height and a width. So we'll say, let's do width 100 and height 100. And since we're going to loop over it, it's always a good practice to, this is quite similar to what we do in web or in React. We add a key to it. So we'll say carousel item, home carousel item, and then I'll just pass index to it. So that's what we are going to render. And let's pass that. It's called item equals. This is what we're going to render. Okay, so let's see what's the error here. It says it's missing the following properties, React element. I see what's the wrong there. So if we look at the render item, it actually takes a list render item, and an item type can be anything. So that's what we need to declare here. We can't just do a React element. It basically needs to come inside a list render item. And that's what we are passing. And if we look at the view, it has already rendered that. So we have these two images. Okay, next we want a horizontal list. So let's do that. In carousel, we can go and we can make sure that we're always doing a horizontal list. So there's a property that is called horizontal, and we need to set it to true. And once we do that, we have this kind of a setup. We probably need to pass more items to it, or let's just do one more thing. Let's just say that we want a much bigger image. And for that, what we can do is we can use a property that's called dimensions. So React provides this, and what we can do is we can get the screens or the windows width. And if you see this, you can get the width, the height, the current font scaling that is being used if the user has actually zoomed the entire OS or the app. For some reason, we can get that. We'll just say width, and we'll just say, we'll take the entire width, and let's just also increase the height a little. Save that. And once that refreshes the view, we should have our horizontal carousel. That was simple, right? So let's look back what we did. We just created a type carousel. It basically takes data, and that's going to be an array, probably getting something like a product list from an API. And then what is it that we want to render? We have this carousel that's a organism that we have that we can reuse. So next, I would encourage the users to pause the video here and build this particular organism themselves. We already have the flat list and it can be used to display these. So the recommended way would be to build a particular molecule which has this icon that we already have and just add title to it. And then we can pass the array of that entire thing to this carousel that we have already built. So I would say pause the video and try that for yourself. And I'll build that and continue the video from there. Okay, so if you have built the widget, let's continue. What I have done here is I've built this category widget, and if we scroll on the UI, that's the widget that we were looking to build. That's the one. It has the title. I've reused the section title molecule for that. And for the rest of it, we have used the icons and the titles. Let's just see what that widget looks like. It's quite straightforward. We already had a carousel molecule and we've added a title attribute to it so that we can support titles. That was not there before. So I added a title to it. And it's basically is an optional type. So if we pass the title, it'll render it and it'll render a section title for that. And then for data, we have the data over here. This can come from a configuration or from the API. And then we just say that we need to render these icons. So for icons, we have the button category that we have defined initially, the atoms, and then the text. One additional thing that I have done is I have added an element section to the globals type. So now we can have these being controlled by the global types and elements. And it basically tells the application that we need to render the text in the center and then have some sort of a margin that's coming from typography. So we'll say global.elements.category icons. And once we save it, our text will now align to the center along with the icons. So I hope you found that simple. So as we can see now, our home component has all the different modules that we need, the organisms and the molecules. We have the category widget. We have the product widget. We also have the search bar icon. It's not been built into an organism that we see in the diagram, but that should be quite straightforward. I'll go ahead and do that before the next module. The final piece of this entire thing, of this entire design system, is templates. And what they are is basically they tell you how the entire system that we have built so far, the accumulation of the atoms and the molecules and organisms, how they're going to come together to build a particular layout. So we'll look at that in the next module. And with that, we'll be able to complete our home page. So thank you and see you in the next module.